recording. And we're going to start in a minute. If you want to open your camera and say hi, you're more than welcome. Shalom. Where are you from? You're on mute. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Los Angeles.
Oh, I know you. You're
You do
Schechter.
know me. I'm
Hey.
Schechter.
Hey, I'm looking at your picture. I'm like, where do I know him from? Shalom. Wow,
And
it's a kid.
I'm in your old house.
It's your old house. I'm like, wow, wow. It's a yofi. How are you? How's Sam? How's
Okay.
everyone?
Everybody's doing wonderful. Wonderful. Sammy's by you. He's not far. He's in Yerushalayim.
He should come for Shabbat, and then I'll believe that he's here.
Okay. But everything is wonderful.
So good to see you. Wow. Wow,
Same
I'm very
here.
emotional now.
How's
Wow.
the family doing?
Baruch Hashem. They're all taller than
Yofi.
me and very big, and yeah, Baruch Hashem.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Please send everybody my best. And Marlene's.
Definitely. Why, Marlene is there. Please send her my love. Oh, I love Marlene.
I will.
Wow, great to see you. Toda rabba.
Same here. B'vakasha.
So I think maybe we should start. Nahon? Am I on time? So maybe I'll just start by saying shalom and hi everyone. My name is Shira, and I'm talking to you from Efrat, from Israel. I'm a Rabbanit of a community called Shirat Tamar, and I used to live in LA for 2 years. We used to be the Bnei Akiva Shlichim in LA many, many years ago. Tonight, I wanted to talk to you about Kadesh. We're going to start preparing towards Leil Seder. It says 30 days before the Chag, you should start learning about the Chag. So, Baruch Hashem, we're starting to get ready and to prepare towards Leil Seder. And the first step in Leil Seder is Kadesh. So in the next almost an hour, I will try and give you a bit of something that I've noticed about Kadesh, and maybe I'll share it with you. And I want to talk about a machloket, about a disagreement between the Ramban and the Rambam. We're going to take it step by step. So first of all, the nosach of Kadesh. Can you see it? I hope you're able to see it. Toda. So the nosach of Kadesh, so it looks familiar, nachon, we know it from Kiddush, from Shabbat, and it's a very similar. It starts with the bracha on the gefen, and then we have Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Am, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose us from all the nations, V'romemanu Mikol Lashon, and He lifted us from all the other languages, from all the other nations that are talking different languages, V'kideshanu b'mitzvotav, and He gave us the mitzvot, and by giving us the mitzvot, this is the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us holiness, giving us the opportunity or the possibility to be holy, and Hashem gave us with love. Moadim lesimcha, the holidays, to be happy in them, to rejoice. Chagim vezmanim lesason, the holidays, to be joyful times. Yom Chag HaMatzot hazeh, zman cherutenu, this day that we are celebrating now, which is the day of our freedom. Mikra Kodesh, zecher liyetziat Mitzrayim, in order to remember Yetziat Mitzrayim, because you have chose us and you have made us holy out of all the other nations, and your Chagim and your holidays with joy and with happiness you gave us in Chaltanu. And again, it ends with the bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem, Mekadesh Yisrael ve'azemanim, which I think it's a beautiful bracha. We're saying, thank you Hashem, like you are blessed, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you are blessed, because you gave us the opportunity to do the Kiddush. You gave us the opportunity to make days, to make specific times and specific people, to make them holy. And I think that in this Kiddush, and then we say the bracha of Shehechayanu, but I think that in this Kiddush, we already have the essence of what is so special about Kiddush. Kiddush is the ability that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Am Israel, gave certain people, which is Am Israel, to make them holy. And he gave those certain people the opportunity or the possibility to make certain times holy. Certain times it could be Shabbat, it could be Chagim. And then the other dimension of holiness would be specific place. So we have holiness in a specific place in Eretz Israel. We have holiness with specific people, which is Am Israel, and we have holiness that we can create, that we can make it holy specific days. So this is the Kiddush. And what I wanted to show you is to talk about a disagreement between the Rambam, and I want to give the perspective of the Rambam. So, of course, everyone knows the Rambam, Moshe ben Maimonides, from 1138 till 1204. He was commonly known as the Maimonides and the Rambam in Hebrew. He was a Sephardi Jew philosopher, and he was a doctor, and the most okay, you're going to read the English because those words are too hard for me, but he was an amazing Torah scholar. And what was so special about him that he wasn't just a Torah scholar, meaning his knowledge was in many different fields, in philosophy, in medicine, and in Torah, in astronomia as well. He was born in Cordoba, in the Almoravid Empire in Spain. His birthday is actually in Pesach. So on Leila Seder, when we celebrate Leila Seder and when we talk about the Haggadah, please say in your Leila Seder, in the good memory of the Rambam. We are now going to say and share his Torah because this is his birthday. He worked as a rabbi, as a physician, as a philosopher in Morocco, in Egypt, and he died in Egypt in December 1204. When his body was taken to the lower Galil, and he was buried in Tveria. So when you come to Israel, you're more than welcome to do like I do. Every time I take my kids, we go, we give it tzedakah, and we light a candle, and we daven on the gravesite of the Rambam. So this is just 2 minutes about the Rambam before we share his Torah. And this is what the Rambam says, Hilchot Chametz U'Matzah. When he writes the halachot of Chametz U'Matzah, this is what the Rambam said. Mitzvat aseh shel Torah, we have an active mitzvah from the Torah, from the Oraita, lesaper benisim vebeniflaot, to tell and to share the miracles and the wonders that have done to our forefathers in Mitzrayim, belel 15 benisan, at the night of Tetvav of Nisan, shene'emar, because it says, zachor et hayom hazeh asher yatzatem mimitzrayim. It says in the Torah, you should remember this day that you went out of Egypt, exactly like it said, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat. On Shabbat we have Zachor v'Shamor. Zachor et Yom HaShabbat, you should remember the day of Shabbat, and Shamor et Yom HaShabbat, and you should keep the day of Shabbat, La'asot et Yom HaShabbat, in order to do the Shabbat a holy day. And Harambam is doing some sort of equivalent in between Zachor et Hayom Hazeh, שיצאתם ממצרים, כמו זכור את יום השבת. So what we're going to try, and I'm going to try and convince you that the Rambam is actually trying to tell us that there is something special about the Kiddush of Leila Seder, which in one way is similar to the Kiddush that we do on Shabbat, but on the other hand, there are some specific things that are special for Leila Seder, for the Kiddush of Leila Seder, for Kadesh. Hamaral Miprag is also, first of all, a lot of commentaries throughout the ages have compared between the Kiddush on Shabbat and Kiddush on Leila Seder, between Kadesh. So Maharal Miprag says in his book, כמו שמצוות קידוש בשבת היא מיד בכניסת שבת, just like the mitzvah of doing the Kiddush on Shabbat is immediately when Shabbat comes in, the same thing is in Leila Seder. The story of going out of Egypt needs to be said right at the beginning of the night. Now, I don't know about you, but in my family, everyone is sitting at the table and everyone are starving. And they're all saying, okay, let's get to the food. But the truth is that the food is not at the beginning. We do not start with the food. We start with kaddesh, and after kaddesh we have rechatz, and then we have the whole ceremony that we do on Leil Seder, and we have all of the Haggadah before we get to the point of the food. And the Maharal Prague is saying that's exactly the point, and it's because of, it's like Shabbat. Shabbat, when you come back from shul, right after you mekadesh the Shabbat, right after you're saying the special tefillah, special Kabbalat Shabbat, you're receiving the Shabbat in the tefillah, you're getting home, and you don't go straight to the food. You're doing the kiddush first. You're doing some sort of commemorating the day with your mouth, with your bracha. The same way you should do in Pesach, in Leil Seder. You start right after tefillah, you start Leil Seder with the kiddush. Maybe at the end we'll talk about it a bit more. Why do we start first from the Haggadah and only then the food and not the other way around? Ha'or Sameach said about the Rambam, about the same Rambam that we just read. Hashva'a, the comparison between Shabbat and the Leil Seder is related to the relationship between the wine to the kiddush, or the wine and the Haggadah, which means just like the mitzvah of saying the kiddush in Leil Shabbat is deoraita, but the cup of the wine is the Rabbanan, and the mitzvah of Kiddush Shabbat is from Deoraita. But how do we do the Kiddush? How do we remember the day of Shabbat? The Torah doesn't tell us take a cup of wine, a glass of wine, and say the bracha on the wine. The Torah only says Zachor et Yom HaShabbat, or Kadesh et Yom HaShabbat. So how do we do that? And then Chachamim came and told us, you do it on wine. You took a glass, you put the wine inside, and you say the bracha on the wine, and this is how you doing the Kiddush. So ha-mitzvah of saying the Kiddush is the Oraita, but the cup of the wine is the Rabbanan. So Or Sameach says on the Rambam exactly like that as Leil Seder. Ha-mitzvah lesaper b'yetziat Mitzrayim hi me'atorah. The mitzvah, the obligation to tell the story of how we went out of Egypt and to say the Haggadah. This is Hegadet lebincha. This is the part which is the Oraita. But the obligation to say it on wine, on a Kiddush, this is the Rabbanan. This is already Chachamim telling us, how would you say the Haggadah? How would you commemorate the going out of Egypt? How would you tell the story? How would you make the day holy and the Chag specific, Pesach? How would you make it holy? And then he would say, this is the Rabbanan, like specifying for us or giving us exactly the details of how to do it. Just like the obligation of Zachor, to remember on Shabbat, is teaching us to remind Shabbat not only to others, but also to ourselves. The first step of Zachor et Yom HaShabbat, the first person who needs to remember the day of Shabbat is the person that is doing the Kiddush, or the person that is each person to his own. So just like that in Leil Seder, the mitzvah of telling the story of going out of Egypt, it's not only to tell it to others, but only to remember and to tell the story to ourselves. So the first step will be Zechor et hayom hazeh, like the Rambam said. Zechor et hayom hazeh, you should remember this day. You should know what have happened there. And only if you would know it, only if you would be able to remember that, then you would be able to move a step forward and do Higadet lebincha, and to tell it and to tell the story and to tell it to your family and to your kids and to pass it on in the generations. But the first step has to be that you yourself remember that day and you are able to remember it by yourself. And this is the Kiddush. The Tosfot in Masechet Pesachim in Daf Kuf Yud Zayin is referring to the word Lema'an Tizkor et Yom Tzedcha Me'eretz Mitzrayim. This is for you, in order for you to remember the day that you have gone out of Egypt. And this is what the Tosfot says. That's why they have established to remember Zecher Li'itziat Mitzrayim, to remember that we left Mitzrayim, that we went out of Egypt. Veshamati שיש במדרש, לפי שבמצרים עבדו בהם בישראל בפרך, because I've heard the Tosfot brings us a midrash, and the midrash says that Am Israel has worked in hard work, in parech, which means like hard labor. And the words parech, be'atbash, melachot 40 chaser achat. Do you know what's atbash? Atbash is when you take aleph and you take instead the taf. You take bet and you take the shin. You take gimel and it's lamed. It's like changing the words. It's like a chida kind of a quiz kind of a thing. So in atbash, the word parech, be'atbash, it's lametet. Lametet. And that reminds that midrash, lametet, it's making the connection to lametet avot melacha. 40 minus 1, 39 melachot, שנגאלו ממצרים, הזהירם על השבת. When בני ישראל left Egypt and stopped being slave, only then HaKadosh Baruch Hu warned them about Shabbat and gave them the ability to keep Shabbat, לשבות מאותם למתת מלאכות. So there's a connection in between Pesach and Shabbat that is hinted to us by the Kiddush, not only by the way that we remember, but the Tosfot here is trying to bring us a midrash in order to say the connection is deeper. Because when Am Israel was in Egypt, they were slaves. And when they were slaves, they weren't able to keep Shabbat or to make the day holy. They didn't have the ability to make the day holy. Even if Am Israel was already chosen from the days of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, he was already chosen to be Am Israel and to have a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they still didn't have the mitzvot, because when they were slaves, they didn't have the ability kaddesh et hayom, to make one specific day, or to make a chag, to make a holiday, to make it holy, because that requires a level of free will, a level of awareness, a level of knowledge. And that was only able to do when they left Mitzrayim, when they left Egypt, and they were no longer slaves, and then they were out in the desert, and that allowed them to open their mind and to understand that they have the ability to be in partnership with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because when you're a slave, your whole set of mind is that you can't do anything. You're not in charge of anything. You can't change anything in reality. Like, your situation is bad, the situation of your children is bad, and it's going like that for generation. And it's like getting everyone into the mode that they can't change their life, they can't change their destiny, and they kind of forget who they are. But once they left Egypt, once they started, once they left Egypt, but they, more than just leaving the geographical place, but more of leaving the set of mind that they are not slaves anymore, only then they were able to understand that you have the ability, because you are the people that Kadosh Baruch Hu chose to have a relationship with, then those people have the ability kadesh yamim mesuyamim, to make certain days, to make them holy. And how would you do that? First of all, by HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the ability to set the days of Rosh Chodesh, and once you declare on Rosh Chodesh at the beginning of the month, it's a decision made by Beit Din. It's a decision when it's Rosh Chodesh. It's a decision made by Beit Din. It's a decision made by people, and only then you know when the Chag is. You know when the holiday is, and this is like a testimony that Hashem is giving us the ability to be partners with Him in creating the world, because the creation of the world didn't end at the beginning of the world with Adam and Chava. When He created people, that was it. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu keeps on creating the world and gives us the opportunity to participate with Him by creating certain times that will be holy. And this is the Tosfot that brings that Midrash, is saying that the Lametet Avot Melacha were only being able, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was able to warn them about Lametet Avot Melacha, and was able to give them the Shabbat only after they left Mitzrayim. So I think maybe it's an idea for the first Dvar Torah that we say on Leil Seder, to think about the link of slavery and the ability to be partners in creating days that are special to Am Yisrael, and why was it not possible, and how by going out of Egypt and stop being slaves, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was able to give them the Shabbat. רגע, סליחה, it's the other way around. Here. Now I want to go into the machloket, into the disagreement, the way that I understand it, in between the Ramban and the Rambam. Okay, Ramban, commentary on the Torah, the beautiful comment, and this is what he writes for Sefer Shmot, Zachor, מצוות עשה, ציווה שנזכור את יום השבת לקודשו ולא נשכחהו. When it says in the Torah, זכור את יום השבת לקודשו, the Rambam says that this is mitzvah, that it's an active mitzvah, it's mitzvat aseh, that we need to remember the day of Shabbat to make it holy, and we should not forget. ואמת הוא גם כן, כי, and it's also true that מידת זכור, רמזו במצוות עשה, the מידה, the ability to do remember, is a hint to that it has to be an active mitzvah, והוא היוצא ממידת האהבה, and it's coming out of love. It has to be from love, because it's mitzvat aseh that hints us, or that tells us that it has to be out of love, and love is the midah of mercy. כי העושה מצוות אדוניו אהוב לו ואדוניו מרחם עליו. Because if you are able to do whatever the master is ordering you, you're doing it because you love your master. And if you love your master, then your master will have mercy on you. It's a dual relationship. It goes both ways. You are doing whatever you are obligated to do because you love it, because you love him. And he, when he sees that you're doing whatever he wants you to, then he will feel mercy on you. In midat shamor, and the midah of shamor, keep the day of Shabbat. This is mitzvat lo ta'aseh. This is not to do. It's a passive mitzvah. Vehu lemidat hadin, and this is resembling of the justice. Veyotze mimidat ha'yir'ah, and it's coming out of fear. כי הנשמר מעשות דבר הרע בעיני אדוניו יראה אותו. Because if you are afraid and you won't do something because you're afraid of your master, then it's coming out of fear. ולכן, מצוות עשה גדולה ממצוות לא תעשה. And that's why the Ramban is explaining the active mitzvah of to do something is bigger than מצוות לא תעשה. It is more important, it is bigger than the mitzvah from a passive mitzvah, of not doing mitzvah. כמו שהאהבה גדולה מהיראה. Because love is bigger than fear. It is more important than fear. It's a greater motivation than fear. And we should try and do all of our action in the world out of love and not out of fear. כי המקיים ועושה בגופו ובממונו, because whoever does and make in his body and with his money, רצון אדוניו, whatever his master is telling him to do, הוא גדול מהנשמר מעשות הרע בעיניו, is bigger than the person that is only trying not to do anything wrong. So the person that wants to do something, that is trying to be active, that is trying to do everything with all of his body, with all of his might, with all of his energy and power and money, whoever is trying to do whatever he can in order to be in a relationship with his master, this is bigger than the person that is just sitting back and saying, I'm going to try and do my best not to do anything wrong. I'm going to try not to ruin it. I'm going to try not to behave badly. So you have to try to be active, because that shows love, then rather than just being passive and saying, which is also very good, not to harm, but that's out of fear. And out of love, bigger than out of fear. ולכך אמרו, דאתי עשה ותחל לא תעשה. And that's why Chachamim are saying, the Rabbanan are saying, that the mitzvot of aseh dochot are pushing aside the mitzvot of lo ta'aseh. This is a halachic rule that we have. Mitzvot aseh, the active mitzvot, are pushing aside, are more important than the mitzvot of not to do. ומפני זה יהיה העונש במצוות לא תעשה גדול. And that's why the punishment of the passive mitzvot is bigger. ועושים בו דין כגון מלכות ומיתה. And if חס וחלילה you're doing something that you're not supposed to do, you can get a punishment. In the days that there was bet din of malkot, I don't know how to translate malkot, but it's it's painful, and or death, חס וחלילה, ואין עושים בו דין במצוות עשה כלל, אלא במורדין. But if you're not doing something that you should have done, like something active, then you don't have the same judgment, then you don't have the same painful punishments or mitah. Only if you're a rebel, which is a different category, halachically. But if you have mitzvah aseh, if you have a positive mitzvah, if you have an active mitzvah that you're not doing, you're not going to get punished for it. But if you have a negative mitzvah, mitzvah lo ta'aseh, and you're doing it, then you're going to get a punishment from the Beit Din. כמו לולב וציצית איני עושה, סוכה איני עושה. סנהדרין היו מכים אותו עד שיקבל עליו לעשות, או עד שתצא נפשו. נכון? You should do lulav, you should do tzitzit, and if you're not doing all of those mitzvot that are obligation, then Sanhedrin would beat him up until he would agree to do so. Okay, so this is the Ramban. What I want to tell you from the Ramban that I want you to notice that how does the Ramban see the mitzvah zachor? He learns that to remember is not to forget, to always remember it, which is mitzvah aseh. Veshamor is the lo ta'aseh, is the passive mitzvah. I'm going to show you now. And we have this Gemara in Masechet Beitza, and I think it's a beautiful Gemara that tells us the difference between Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai. Tane amru alav al Shammai HaZaken. It was said about Shammai HaZaken, the old elderly Shammai, Kol yamav haya ochel lichvot Shabbat. All of his days he would eat in order to honor the Shabbat. How so? How come? Because not every day is Shabbat. So how come during the whole week he was eating in order to honor the Shabbat? Matzah behema na'a. He found a beautiful sheep, a beautiful cattle. He used to say, this one will be for Shabbat. I'm going to save it for Shabbat. The next day, on Monday, he went and he found even a better one, a nicer sheep, a better cattle. He said, this one is better than the one that I found yesterday. So I'm going to leave the first one. I'm going to take the second one. And I'm going to eat the first one, and the second one I'm going to keep for Shabbat. And that he always improved everything that he found. Every time he found something, he said, okay, this is beautiful. I'm going to keep it for Shabbat. He found something else. He ate the first one, and he kept the second one. In a difference from Bet Shammai, Hillel HaZaken, midah acheret hayta bo. He used to treat Shabbat or to remember Shabbat in a different way. Kol ma'asav hayu l'shem shamayim. Everything that he has done was pointed out or was towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was in awareness to do it because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants him to do it. Shene'emar, Baruch Hashem, Yom Yom Ye'emas Lanu. Every day, thank God, every day. Baruch Hashem, every day. Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what you eat, everything that you do is part of, I'm dedicating it to Hashem. Bet Shammai omrim bechad b'shevcha lev'shevtecha, meaning Bet Shammai would say Hayom Yom Rishon b'Shabbat Kodesh, like counting towards Shabbat. Today is Sunday towards Shabbat. Today is Monday towards Shabbat. The second day, it works better in Hebrew. Hayom Yom Rishon leShabbat Kodesh. Hayom Yom Sheni leShabbat. Kilu first to Shabbat, second to Shabbat. In English it works, it's different. But in Hebrew it works very well. This is the way that Bet Shammai would count the days of the week. But Bet Hillel would say, every day, Baruch Hashem. Hayom Yom Rishon, Baruch Hashem Yom Rishon, and Shabbat is Shabbat. Yom Sheni, Baruch Hashem al Yom Sheni, and Shabbat. Meaning when all of your action and when all of your thoughts are dedicated to Hashem, you don't need to plan ahead towards Shabbat because every day it's like overall. And this is and this is how we see Zachor et Yom HaShabbat. This is how Bet Hillel ve Bet Shammai kept Zachor et Yom HaShabbat, to remember the day of the Shabbat. Al yedei HaShabbat yeshno zikaron ma'aseh bereshit vehu yom yom. Every day you remember that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created in 6 days he created the earth, and then on the 7th day he rested. And by every day that you are working on Sunday, on Monday, you remember that it's going towards the day that HaKadosh Baruch Hu rested, and it's going towards Shabbat. So you actually remember Shabbat every day, not only like Bet Shammai that would say this is towards Shabbat, but also by doing every day the day of that word, of the work of that day, this is also a way to remember Shabbat. The Pasuk in Ishaya says, "Vekarat la Shabbat oneg," and you should call the Shabbat pleasure. Likdosh Hashem mechubad. Why is it pleasure on Shabbat? Because Hashem made it holy, and you should make it respectable. Who makes it respectable? Should you make it respectable? Does HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes it respectable? Who makes it holy? HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes it holy, or do we make it holy? But the idea is that pleasure comes from holiness and from making the day respect. And now let's go and see how the Rambam, Maimonides, how he translated or interpreted Zachor et Yom HaShabbat a bit different, and that's how we'll connect it to Leil HaSeder, to Kiddush on Leil HaSeder, because he's giving us different things that we should emphasize on Leil HaSeder, because of the way that he interpreted Kadesh, Kiddush. So the Rambam says on Sefer HaMitzvot, the book that he counts the mitzvot and explained every mitzvah, שציוונו לקדש את השבת, הקדוש ברוך הוא commanded us to make the Shabbat holy, ולומר דברים בכניסתו וביציאו. How do we make the Shabbat holy? By saying certain things when Shabbat comes in and when Shabbat leaves and when Shabbat comes out. נכון? We have Kiddush and we have Havdalah. Nazkir bam yetziat Mitzrayim, in the things that we say, we have to remind in them, we have to remember in them going out of Egypt, vekidush hayom v'ma'alato, and to make the day holy and how special that day is, v'hibadlo mishar hayamim, and how different that day is from the other days. So the Rambam writes in Sefer HaMitzvot that the idea of Kiddush, the purpose of Kiddush, is to say, so how do we make the day holy? By saying Kiddush and Havdalah, like saying this is the beginning and this is where it leaves, like to give it borders, to give it, you give it borders, and then you're saying this is special, so everything that is outside of it is a regular day. So by defining the limits of that day, the beginning and the end, and then remembering and saying Yetziat Mitzrayim, and in the Kiddush, and to say during that Kiddush what the difference between that day and all the other days. So the Rambam is emphasizing two different elements. The first one, remember, it's not only not to forget. The Ramban, and this is the first difference between the Rambam and the Ramban, that the Ramban is saying to remember, it doesn't mean not to forget, but it means to say it, like to do something active and to say it. And the Rambam is saying to say it with length, meaning not just to say, okay, Shabbat Kodesh Shkoech, but actually to speak it up and to explain it, to put it out there, really to explain it and to say it and to say the whole length of the Kiddush. And the second element of Kiddush that is important to the Rambam is to remind the Kiddush Hayom v'ma'alato v'shivcho shel Yom, to say in the Kiddush what is so special about that day. So it's not only about to remember and not to forget, it's not only to remember, but it's also to emphasize and to say out loud what is so special about that Shabbat. Why do we take the time and the energy in order to commemorate that day that is different? In what way is it different? So what can we learn from Kiddush that we do on Shabbat, and the differences between Kiddush of Shabbat to Leil HaSeder? So the first thing, and that's according to the Rambam, that it's not enough just to remember, but from the Oraita, like Mamash, the mitzvah, is to say it with length and to explain and to interpret the whole story. Not just to read it from the Haggadah, but actually to say it in your own words. So my recommendation would be that after doing the Kiddush, to say the words, after you're saying the words of the Kiddush, to say it in your own words, like use your own words to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose us. And there's a link between Shabbat and between Leila Seder. We couldn't have had Shabbat if we wouldn't have gotten out of Egypt. And that's why we're starting the story of going out of Egypt, and it's an added value to Shabbat, because we have to remember that if we were still slaves, we won't be able to have Shabbat. So to say it in our own words and to explain it, or to give it our own interpretation to what does it mean to be able to do Kiddush. And the second thing that we're learning from the Rambam, חייב לשבח ולפאר גדר לילו של פסח. You have to explain and to praise the night of Pesach. כמו שאומרים, יום השביעי משבח ואומר, נכון, we say on Shabbat that during the seventh day we have to praise the seventh day, חייבים לשבח את השבת because היא משובחת. We have to praise the Shabbat because it's a special day, עד כדי היות השבת חמדת הימים. Shabbat is our special day, and we're learning from that we also have to praise Leil HaSeder, but the difference is זכור את יום הזה אשר יצאתם ממצרים, that's what the Rambam is saying. It's just like זכור את יום השבת. השבת היא חמדת ימים, השבת is a special day, וליל הסדר חמדת הלילות. ליל הסדר is a special night. The whole idea of ליל הסדר is especially during the night. If Shabbat is the day that is special to us and that we need to praise and we need to commemorate and we need to have pleasure in it, in Leil HaSeder, the mitzvah, and the mitzvah at Aseh, to tell the story of Leil HaSeder, is dafka at night. And that's the difference between the Shabbat and Leil HaSeder. Shabbat, we started at night and it ends at night because it's 24 hours, but Leil HaSeder, the mitzvah itself, happened during the night because that's the way that we commemorate Am Yisrael going out of Egypt at night. So we need to say in our own words and to give praise and to explain the beauty of Leil HaSeder. That's why in the Haggadah, we give praise and thank to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At the end of the Haggadah, right before we drink the second cup, we say, Baruch Ata Hashem, Asher Ge'alanu, that He redeemed us, Ve'ga'al et avotenu mimitzrayim, and He redeemed our forefathers from Egypt, Ve'gi'anu halayla hazeh, and we have come to this night, Le'echol bo matzah u'maror, to eat matzah, to eat the maror during that night. Ken Hashem Elokenu, just the same, Hashem Yagi'enu lemoadim ve'leregalim acherim. Hashem will help us to reach and to get to other holidays and to other chagim. Haba'im likratenu leshalom, that are coming towards us with peace. Smechim bebinyan ircha, happy with the building of your city. And if you have the privilege of doing the Seder of one of the Chagim in Yerushalayim, you can actually see with your own eyes and to be joyful about how the city is built. And Baruch Hashem, we have city full of people walking around with their Shabbat clothes. It's beautiful to see, and mamash, you can see the psukim from the Tanakh talking about Geula. You can see it in your own eyes. Sasim be'avodatecha, happy with worshiping you. V'nochal sham min hazvachim v'min hapsachim, and we will eat there, Be'ezrat Hashem, when we will have Beit Mikdash, we will be able to eat there from the zevach and the psachim, the korbanot, the sacrifice, asher yagia damam al kir mizbachecha leratzon, v'nodeh lecha shir chadash, and we will thank you with a new poem, al geulatenu, about redeeming us, ועל פדות נפשנו, and about פדות נפשנו, I have no idea how to translate that, redeeming our souls. Baruch Ata Hashem Ga'al Yisrael. So there's a combination in between remembering something old, saying thank you about something that has happened, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu have Ga'al otanu, and He Ga'al et avotenu mimitzrayim, but there's also a new poem that we need to say, a new praise that we need to make. And the new praise is when we look out the window today and we can see Am Yisrael and we can say Baruch Hashem. And this is the combination in between the past and the present and looking forward to the future when Be'ezrat Hashem we will have a Beit Mikdash. We say in the bracha, Vehegi'anu halayla hazeh. Why aren't we saying like every Shehecheyanu, Vehegi'anu lazman hazeh? Why do we say halayla hazeh? And the answer is, I think, because this is what the Rambam is talking about, because this is Chemdat HaLelot, because this is the joyful of the night. Leila Seder is special and is different from Shabbat, that Shabbat is the joyful is during the day, and Leila Seder is we have to be joyful during the night, and that's why we say in the bracha, Hegi'anu halayla hazeh. This is the night that we have come. This is the night that we have made it. I don't know how's your Hebrew. I have no idea. I'm gonna try and translate this part. I couldn't ignore it, even though it's a bit hard in English. So you're welcome to help me out. This is from Orot HaKodesh, from Rav Kook. Rav Kook in Orot HaKodesh, he writes, it's like a poem. That's why it's hard for me to translate. But we're going to try and translate it because I felt that it's mamash talking about exactly the same of what we spoke about Bet Hillel veBet Shammai and how to commemorate and how to remember. And this is what Rav Kook is saying. Kedushat hazman, the holiness of time, מתפשטת היא על כל אורך הזמן, is spreading throughout time. ברוך השם יום יום, thank God every day, day by day. והולכים קווי אורי הקודש, and the lines, it's literally a poem, so try to imagine the light is going in like strings. He describes here the holiness, and he sees the holy, the kedusha, as light. Imagine a ball of light, and from that ball of light, you have strings of kodesh, nimshachim betzura mesuteret, and they are hidden. No one can sense them, no one can feel them, no one can see those strings of holiness. עד שבאים לידי הבאה וגילוי בזמנים המקודשים, until there comes a time when they are revealed, those strings of lights, because this is specific times that they are holy. בקדושת השבת, in the holiness of Shabbat, תחילה למקראי קודש, this is the beginning of when we're calling it, when we're saying, when we're declaring that it is Kodesh, that it's holy. בתור קדושה מקורית, that's the original holiness, שהיא משפעת קדושה, that it influenced the holiness על העולם ועל ישראל. Shabbat has the ability to influence holiness on the world and on Israel. ובקדושת הימים הטובים, and in the holiness of the good days, which means the חגים, the holidays, בתור מקבלי שפעת הקודש, as receivers of the influence of the holiness, על ידי ישראל, דקדשינהו לזמנים. By Israel that have the ability to make the holiness exist in the times. So I'm going to say it now. I've tried to translate it word by word. I'm going to try and say it in my own words in 2 sentences. He's saying that holiness exists in the world. It exists. We're not aware. We can't see it. We can't feel it. And it's just like there in our world. But there are certain times that we have the ability to reveal that holiness. And there are certain people that it's Am Yisrael that have the ability to reveal that holiness in those special times. And when it comes together, the special people, and during that special time, it has the ability to reveal that light, to reveal that holiness, and then the influence won't only just be for that specific day, but it will linger and it will go on to the other days of the week, to the other days of the year, to the other people that are all around us. And this is the metaphor that I have in my head for the Kedusha of the Chagim, for the holiness of the Chagim, and the ability of Am Yisrael to do the Kiddush, the ability that Am Yisrael has to take part in that Kedusha and to participate in that Kedusha. Again, this is the Rambam from Hilchot Shabbat. Keshem shemekadshim beleilei Shabbat, just like you're doing the Kiddush on Shabbat night. V'mavdilim b'motzei Shabbat, and you're doing the Havdalah, and you're doing, again, a different kind of Kiddush, but to say goodbye to the Shabbat at the end of Shabbat and Motzei Shabbat. Kach mekadshim beleilei yamim tovim, the same way you're doing the Kiddush at the night of the holidays. V'mavdilim b'motzohen, and you say the Havdalah at the end of that day. V'b'motzei Yom Kippur, shekulam Shabbatot Hashem hem. All of those days, all of the holidays, and Yom Kippur, they are all Shabbatot from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's just like Shabbat from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. ומבדילים במוצאי ימים טובים לחולו של מועד, and even, for example, this year, Be'ezrat Hashem, in Israel, we only have one day, thank God. So we have Leila Seder on Friday night and on Shabbat. So on Motzei Shabbat, we will do Havdalah. You will do a second Kiddush. Nachon, if you're outside of Israel, you will do a second day of Chag, and you will do Kiddush, and then you will do Havdalah on Sunday night. Even though we're going into Chol HaMoed, even though it's not differentiating between the Chag and in between a regular Chol, but it's from Chag to Chol HaMoed, ובמוצאי שבת ליום טוב, אבל אין מבדילים במוצאי יום טוב לשבת. But if it would have been, for example, second days of Chag, it's going to be Thursday night, Friday, and then it's going to be Shabbat right away. So for us, for Israelis, it's a big, I don't know how to deal with it, how to cook for so many days. Maybe you can give me tips of how do you do it. So you don't do the Havdalah in between the end of the Chag to the beginning of Shabbat. And that's what the Rambam is saying here. So here, I'm not going to go into it. I brought a few halachic sources that are talking about, is it the Oraita or the Rabbanan, the Kiddush of Yom Tov? I think Rov Poskim would say that it's just like Shabbat, that it's the Oraita, but I'm not going to go into the whole halachic. I see that we don't have the time to go into the halachic details. And I want to end up with this thought. Already at the beginning of the night, we are starting the destination. We're starting to walk towards the destination. It's not only a story of freedom, of how to go out to freedom, but we start with the destination, Kiddush. What does it mean? I'm going to try and say it in my own words. We're setting the tone, and I think that's why we're starting with Kiddush, both on Shabbat and during Chagim, and when we're not starting with the soup, like my kids would have wanted. We're starting by setting the tone. We're starting by saying Kiddush in order to say, we are the nation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have a special relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the ability to make certain days holy. And basically, in essence, this is what we're doing here in the world. And all of that could have happened because we left Egypt, because we used to be slaves, and we went out of Egypt and we received the Torah, and it's all beautiful. But we're starting by saying the essence at the start. We're starting by saying the Kiddush, HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the ability to make certain days holy. And that's the essence of it. And then when we tell the story, we already have in the back of our head, where are we going? Like, where's this journey leading us? Because the idea of going out of Egypt was not just an idea of going out of Egypt in the purpose of not being slaves, but it was going out of Egypt in order to worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalach et ami v'yavduni, and they should worship me. Meaning, you should send my people. Nachon, Moshe is telling, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Moshe, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Moshe that is telling Paro, Shalach et ami v'yavduni, the purpose is not to be free. The purpose is not to leave Egypt, and it doesn't matter where we'll go. Nachon, Uganda, Africa, or Australia. The purpose is let my people go in order for them to worship me. And by starting with the Kiddush, we're setting the tone, and we're saying, we're not gonna let you read the whole story without knowing the end. We're gonna tell you the end, we're gonna tell you the purpose, we're gonna tell you the essence right at the beginning. Kadesh. We're doing Kiddush. And the essence of working HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the difference in between being slaves and worshiping HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is that by worshiping HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have partnership. And we have the ability to keep on creating the world, to keep on creating the days and deciding which days will be our holy days, which days will be Rosh Chodesh, and therefore which days will be Chagim. And we have the ability to do Kiddush. We have the ability to stand up with our family, to hold a glass of wine, and to say, this day is holy. Kaddesh et hayamim, kaddesh et hachagim. And that is the difference between being slave to whatever master it is, and to worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the partnership that we have within worshiping Him. So starting with Kiddush, I'm gonna, starting with Kiddush is like telling us the end of the story right at the beginning, to tell us, you're going to go out on a journey tonight. You're going to sit with your family and you're going to tell the whole story of how we were slaves in Egypt and how HaKadosh Baruch Hu have saved us and took us out of Mitzrayim with great miracles and tore the sea for us and gave us the Torah, and it's all beautiful. But the purpose of it was in order for us to worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was not just in the purpose of just leaving Mitzrayim. And we're saying that already in the Kiddush, that we have the ability, kaddesh et hayamim, to make the days holy, to reveal that special light, to reveal that special power, and to let that holiness to influence our other days and our other areas of our life, to put them within holiness. This is it. This is what I have to say about Kiddush. I want to encourage you to open your mics or your video, and if you have any questions or you have any thoughts that you would like to share with us about Kiddush, about Kadesh, about Leil Seder, you're more than welcome to do so. I'm going to stop the recording and you can feel free to talk.